Margaret Schlachter with Mud Run Guide. I am here with the one and only Adam Kimble. Not too long ago, we documented Adam's run across the U.S., a modern-day Forrest Gump. And now he is one of the participants on the new Discovery Channel show called The Wheel. So every week, we're going to have Adam, the show's on Friday. Monday, Adam and I are going to kind of debrief what happened in the show and what it was actually like behind the scenes.
Yeah, we'll get a little extra footage not covered on camera.
Yeah, I love it. So thanks so much, for taking the time to kind of talk to us about the show. It seems pretty cool. It's like there's like 6 of you guys. They just drop you off in South America in different spots, different locations, and you just have to survive for an unknown amount of time.
Exactly. The 6 of us were all taken to separate locations. I started episode 1. I was in the tundra in Argentina. And we don't know what the zones are. So when I first got to the tundra, they were like, "Welcome to the tundra," and you're there for an undetermined amount of time. And it's that's part of what makes it such an interesting and unique survival show, is that you don't know when the wheel is going to turn, and then you'll head to a new location and start all over again. And that was one of the mentally one of the toughest things, is that if you were comfortable, or even if you were uncomfortable, knowing that you're going to have to start from scratch in a new place, it was always tough.
Yeah, so I guess the first question would be, what even motivated you? I mean, you've run across the country, you've done ultra marathons, you were a Warrior Dash, race director, so you've been in the obstacle racing world. I mean, you have kind of done a little bit of it all. So what made you want to do this sort of challenge?
Yeah, it's funny to look back at the last few years and see how things have played out. But with my time at Red Frog working on Warrior Dash, it exposed me to how awesome the OCR and running world is. And then I started getting more into specifically the running side of it, got into ultra running. That led to the run across the U.S. And then I believe very strongly that if it wasn't for that run across the U.S., I probably wouldn't have been cast on the show. I think that was a big selling point for my resume, because not a lot of people take on an endeavor like that. And so they knew I was crazy. And that's part of why I want to take on the wheel. It's a new challenge, a different type of challenge. And as an ultra runner, you're kind of a little sick in the head at times, just in how you approach things and the things that you willingly put yourself through. And this was another opportunity in a different area to do that to myself.
Yeah. And I mean, so are you like an avid, I remember I talked to the casting person before they cast the show, and they're saying like, oh, we want people that just like to go camping or whatever, or like to be outdoors, but they're not necessarily like, you're not like survival experts or anything like that. So,
right.
So like, how much survival sort of, wilderness experience did you have prior to this show?
I love the outdoors. That's about as far as it goes. I love camping. I love hiking. But I've always done that in a very simple environment in which I didn't have to prepare it myself. The fire was made with gasoline. The food was in a bag that we brought with us. And I wasn't foraging for edible plants and nuts and seeds and all kinds of stuff. So I did not have a lot of survival experience at all going into this, and I was very clear about that during the casting process. I said, hey, if you guys are looking for Bear Grylls, that's not me. And I bring a different set of skills that is unrelated to survival, but can help you in rough situations, and that was kind of my whole strategy in the casting process.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess when you found out that you were going to be on the show to when you got dropped off on the tundra, how much time did you sort of to do a crash course in survival skills and edible plants?
That was about 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. And the funny thing was, I was trying to do as much as possible, reading books about, like you said, edible plants, watching other survival shows, and just trying to get as much information as I could. And at a certain point, I kind of thought to myself, this is almost making me more nervous doing all this research. So it's not that I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to put myself in a mental place of having fear heading into it. So I did it up to a certain point, and then I'm like, you know what? Let's just let the chips fall where they may, and see how this thing plays out.
and and I remember you saying before we started recording this, you said that all of you guys on the show briefly met each other for like less than 24 hours, and you were all thrown into your different spoke of the wheel. But how is it in that you guys decided that you weren't going to talk about everybody's experience when you saw each other again, I guess at the end, but how is it now, watching the first episode and seeing other people in locations that you may or may not have gone to that we'll see later on in the season, but were you like, oh man, I should have done that there, or like, oh, if they had just gone over there, are you watching it going like, oh, I should have done that?
Yeah. Totally. That's the awesome part, is that because we were all alone, we had no idea what was happening to the other contestants. And so now we're getting to live through them vicariously and see the things that they went through. And I think regarding what you just said, I think the thing that in the first episode especially was most clear to me was how much differently the gear and things we were provided were used by each contestant. So for example, Luke, in one of the first scenes in the rainforest, he has his fishing net, and he takes the rope from the fishing net and ties it to a tree and makes a shelter off of that rope. That thought had never even occurred to me to do that. And then I see Sean, he's got this rubber tubing, and he's using it as a straw to drink out of his bag of water. And I use that tubing pretty much to build shelters, and that was it. So I never even thought to use it as a straw. So it's fun to see how everybody does things differently, and when you're given the same tools, people use them completely differently.
Yeah, and I guess, so the first episode, you are in the tundra. So can you tell me a little bit about, I mean, I'm here in Utah, in southern Utah. It's seemed pretty similar to some of those conditions where you've got water, sort of, but there's not a whole lot of vegetation around and edible things to eat. So what was it like when, I guess you rode in by horse?
Yeah.
what was it like when you just sort of dropped off and you're like, okay, well, go?
Yeah, it's funny. My wife Karen asked me the same thing. She said, when you first got dropped off, what was going through your mind? And I think at that point it was all just adrenaline, and and it really was a blur. You get dropped off and you're like, all right, let's just go figure this thing out. So I don't remember those moments all that clearly, but the tundra, honestly, the toughest thing about the tundra is like you said, the lack of vegetation and food. That's what makes it so hard. It's cold, but not too cold. It's pretty windy. That was tough at times, but the hardest thing was just the lack of nutrition. It was, no matter where you went, it was really, really hard to find anything. And that I think was the really big challenge of the tundra zone.
Yeah, and I guess they also profiled the fact that you had kind of an emotional moment when you realized that it was the same day that your wife, Karen, who you just mentioned, was having an interview in California, and you guys were living in, I think, Illinois at the time still, right?
Yep, exactly.
So you're literally on the other side of the planet in a lot of ways, longitudinally.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, I could go home and basically have a totally different life. And I'm also trying to survive. So how was that? Right. I mean, emotion.
That was, so I would always tell people that there was 3 pillars of what made this challenge so difficult, the challenge of the wheel itself. The pillars were the physical side of not eating food, the mental side of, there was a lot of things going on with the mental, but a big part of it was, what's going to happen with the weather? Is it going to rain? Is the wind going to pick up and blow my shelter away? And mentally also just wondering what was going on with everybody in my life. My wife, my friend Mark, who was a big motivation for me on the show, and just anybody. I was constantly wondering what is happening with everybody that I know, all my friends and family, because I can't communicate with a single one of them. So that was mentally draining. And then it was also emotionally draining too, because, you think about all the different things that are happening, and you just have no emotional connection to anybody. And that wore on me a lot more than I thought it was going to.
So I want to keep this short enough that people, we don't spend their whole day on it, and then they go watch the episode. I highly suggest you go watch the episode. You'll see all the different people, all the different pieces. But what is one thing that we, I guess, didn't see, like that maybe it looks like didn't make the cutting room floor? Some moment that you had on the Tundra that was memorable.
I think I'd probably say because it was the Tundra and it was pretty cool, you didn't need to bathe too much. But a couple times I just felt like I wanted to rinse off, So I'd go and take a bath in the river there, and the water was absolutely freezing. So that was always interesting. It was like one of those things where you feel like you're in Chicago, they have a polar bear club where these people go and swim in Lake Michigan when it's, December and January. And it felt like that. You jump in and then all of a sudden your body's numb after about 10 seconds. So that comes to mind. And there's actually also another scene that wasn't in the episode, that The Wheel and Discovery Channel released afterwards. And I posted it on Facebook, but it's an interesting scene where I nearly lost a very, very important tool in my bag. So that's a good one too.
Oh no, yeah, we'll link that to the article that goes with this video. So if you're watching this, look for the link either on YouTube, it'll be below you. On Facebook, it'll be above you. So anything else that you wanted to say about the first episode before we wrap up this week's little chat?
Not really, no. Just next Friday should be a fun episode. At the end, if you haven't seen it, at the end they tease the fact that one of the 6 people drops out in the second episode, so tune in to find out who it is.
Well, we hope that's not you. Either way, we are going to keep talking through every episode.
Yeah.
But if you can run across America, this is just my prediction, that if you can run across America, and some of those mental tough points that you had that I know we've talked about and you've written about. So if people are just tuning in and just hearing that, go back and see. We followed Adam running across the country, and he had some crazy stuff happen to him along the way. So, it's a lot of mental fortitude.
Yeah. I use the analogy, mental strength is like a well. And whenever you go through something crazy, the well just digs deeper, and then you got more to pull from when you need it. So,
well, excellent. Well, we'll have you back next week, and we'll find out what happened on The Wheel.
Cool. Sounds great, Margaret. Thanks so much.